Sure. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB strategy live before lock type show. I don't know. We're doing a show at 11 o'clock in the morning and there's an early slate. So we'll call it whatever we need to call it for today. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by PrizePicks. We'll definitely talk about them in a bit. But before we do anything else, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us on Twitter. That would help as well. Adam, were you able to get to enough of the wildly overpriced Spencer Strider yesterday? Terrible output for him.
Yeah, got lucky. I feel like that the $8,300 guy with the best strikeout percentage on the slate came through.
Just an absolutely exceptional day between him and Kevin Gausman. I did get the message from you yesterday that you were just like, I went off a Strider and went to Gausman, and I already hate it. I guess it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, it worked out fine. It didn't matter. Obviously, didn't get the same quality of hitters, but yeah.
Right.
And in tournaments, I had Strider as my highest owned pitcher, but yeah, the message about cash, I ended up just there was such cheap hitting that I just ended up going Gausman and Burns. Obviously, I wish I'd gone Gausman Strider, but
Sure.
that was never going to happen. So
No. Yeah, when I finally looked at their final scores, I was like, well, I guess that ended up being just like a, for all intents and purposes, a wash. Like in a cash game scenario, you're happy you got either one of them.
right.
Anything else interesting for you on yesterday's slate?
No, slate just kind of sucked. I kind of talked to you before the show. I think I'm getting to too much value hitting in my tournament lineups recently. It's kind of just been like a glaring mistake. So that's something I'm going to play around with and try and fix some today. I just ended up with like more Oakland than I would ever want yesterday. Ended up with more Kansas City again for the 100th slate in a row. So that's something I need to play around with a little bit. I know how to fix it. I just guess I need to do it. But yeah, that stood out to me. But overall, just nothing, no real takeaways.
There we go. Well, interesting slates for today. FanDuel, as per usual, makes it difficult to do content, and they split up the early slates. So we've got the early only, which I think, yeah. So we've got the early only. That locks at 12-10, and that is 8 games. 8 games. And then we get the afternoon only, which overlaps a little bit there. And they have... Anybody has that answer? I'm trying to click on it. There we go. 3 games in the afternoon only. So we're going to touch on the 12-10 games from a FanDuel perspective first, and then we'll get into the normal DraftKings style evaluation that we generally speaking do. So I'm ready to go if you are.
Yeah. Oh, and also
it's early, not very early.
Yep.
Yeah, I did it too. I figured it out 5 seconds before you started saying it. Okay, so we definitely want to touch on some of these early games before we do anything, which is going to be, what is there, 2 12 o'clock games? Am I right there?
Yeah, I mean, not entirely on the time, but yes, there's 2.
What do you mean, not right in terms of the time?
Like, it's like 12:10 and 12:20 or something.
Yeah, 12 o'clock games. It encompasses an entire 59 minutes.
Sure, yeah.
That's how that works. All right, so Toronto and Tampa Bay is the first one up. It's Kikuchi and Jalen Beeks. How do those two guys stand up for you on this early slate for FanDuel?
Neither one looks that important to me because with it being a one-pitcher site, like the $7,100 price tag on Kikuchi, we know he's got good strikeout stuff, and if this were a 2-pitcher site, then I could make a case for him, but it's just really hard to make that case on a one-pitcher site. We have him with a 5% chance of being the top-scoring pitcher, 3% ownership. Beeks opening, and I believe expected to be followed by Yarbrough, just going up against the Jays, not appealing. Yarbrough is coming off of a good outing against Baltimore, but if he's going to follow Beeks, if he's going to be the long guy, you can't even get the quality start on FanDuel. So in addition to many other reasons, just not interested there.
Okay, that seems totally reasonable to me. If we take a look at them from a hitting perspective, both sides of this one, again, Toronto and Tampa, first game that's popping off today. Toronto is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in our top stack tool, but really just the top of like the rest of the tiers. Tampa Bay quite a bit further down in terms of rank. There are 3 teams that are clearly separated from the pack, 2 more that are basically in the tier after that, and then you kind of bunch everybody together. Does Toronto stand out differently to you?
No, not really. It's not a great spot for them. You know, you're getting Beeks opening, followed by Yarbrough, who's a decent pitcher. You're in Tampa Bay, which is a tough park to hit in. Only a 4.1 implied run total for Toronto. This is just another game for them where, I think if you get to the Blue Jays and you say you want to play them, fine. They're a really good offense, but I don't really see anything that makes me want to go out of my way to get there.
Anything on the Tampa side that you would willing to be going to, even though they are quite clearly ranked a bit lower than the Toronto side?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get some power bats against Kikuchi, that's typically a pretty good spot to be. But this park also downplays power, so that's that works in Kikuchi's favor. 219 expected ISO to righties this year, 272 to lefties. If you want a one-off or mini stack with guys like Paredes or Rosarena, Diaz, something like that, it's fine. But again, just a tough park to hit in. Not a very appealing team overall.
The other 12 o'clock game, or somewhere in the 12 to 12:59 range, so we can be more specific here. Philadelphia at Atlanta. Zach Wheeler, Charlie Morton. This one we're going to talk about probably a little bit differently here. Wheeler, second in our top pitchers tool. Charlie Morton, not too far behind. Basically the same odds of being a top one pitcher here, at least from a FanDuel perspective. Who do you prefer between Wheeler and Morton?
I think it's pretty close. I give a slight edge to Wheeler, especially the way things look right now. We have him with a 9.5% chance of being the top pitcher at 8% ownership compared to a 9% chance for Morton at 10% ownership. So, you are kind of splitting hairs, and Morton is the better value. There's no doubt about that. $8,700 price tag there compared to 10.6. But if the salary doesn't matter, I like the idea of getting to Wheeler at a little bit lower ownership. You do have some strikeouts in the Atlanta lineup. Morton has the more favorable matchup and the more favorable price tag. So I would think, like, if you're playing cash games, you would probably get the Morton first. And I'm certainly not going to be upset about having to, quote unquote, downgrade the Morton in a tournament lineup if I can't afford Wheeler.
Okay. Yeah, just looking through our top pitchers tool for the early slate. Wheeler, 9.5% chance of being the top pitcher. Morton, 8.9. That is basically the exact same. These guys are not owned all that differently. The guy that's pulling the most ownership on the early slate, Garrett Cole, somebody that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Because both of those guys are pretty solid, Philly and Atlanta, not exactly ranking super duper high in our top stack odds. How do you feel about either Philadelphia or Atlanta? Do either one of those teams stand out to you for this early slate?
No, I mean, really difficult matchup for both. You have a watered down Philadelphia lineup. Atlanta is one of those teams that you can always get to just because they have so much power. But at the same time, they are without Albies. They are without Duvall. That obviously has been the case for a while. But it waters down that lineup a little bit when you're talking about, Eddie Rosario hitting fifth. But out of the two offenses, I would get to Atlanta first and just hope that Zach Wheeler has one of his worst games of the season. But realistically, neither team looks very good.
King of Smack was the Strider take yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Nice to see you came back today, King of Smack. I would have went and hid based on that take. That was about as bad as it gets. Made Sean V look like Nostradamus.
Yeah, Sean V has never said that pitchers should be capped at 7K because they could pitch poorly. He just says that every pitcher on a slate could pitch poorly.
Yes, that's also true. But yeah, that King of Smack take is quite terrible, I might say. It's pretty bad. Pretty bad. We ready to talk this early slate for DK? 6 games for today. That is what we are prepped for. I'm ready if you are ready.
We prepped for something?
You should probably, I'm just saying probably. I can't say this for sure. Probably not say that on the stream. That seems like the one we keep in private.
It's all in my brain.
Oh, that's worse. That's so much worse.
If we're talking about your brain.
I mean, it would be, there's so much in my brain that sometimes I have trouble tracking it all.
It's because you have a small brain.
I mean, my body made up for it in other ways.
Feet?
Sure. The classic size 12s. Classic size 12s. Oh, Strider did well, but he's still priced high. He has a great support behind him, actually. That is a just awful take. I don't even get it.
I don't even get it.
It couldn't be worse. How could you possibly think he's priced high?
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, is he suggesting his defense is why he has success? Like, the guy's striking out over a third of the guys he faces.
I can't imagine looking at his stats, looking at his pedigree, looking at his stats for this season and saying that, and then getting just absolutely king of smacked across the face with like his best game in his life. Like,
good comment from Citizen X, by the way. Adam realizing last minute he actually prepped for the show at the same time tomorrow.
I mean, wouldn't be the first time that he's done something thinking it's today and it was supposed to be tomorrow. You ready?
Yeah.
Yankees and Mariners. Yankees 4.2 run implied total. Mariners 3.1. Garrett Cole and Luis Castillo going in this one. I think we're going to need to talk at least a little bit about Garrett Cole here, who is 55% owned on DraftKings on this 6-gamer, 10,500, most expensive pitcher on the slate by $800 more than the guy that he's going up against. And to me, it makes perfect sense on this slate size. I think Cole looks great.
Yeah, completely agree. Seattle's still without Julio Rodriguez, so that obviously makes their lineup less scary. Cole's a really good strikeout pitcher. That goes without saying. He's expensive, but not overpriced. Like, it's still relatively easy to get to somebody at 10.5. 32.5% strikeout percentage for him, 2.72 xFIP. Looks really good.
Yeah, there's not, when you're on a 6-gamer like this, it becomes pretty difficult. Like, the reason that you're getting away from Cole is because you're just trying to blindly say, like, I can't roster a pitcher with that much ownership.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not saying like you need to play Cole in every lineup or anything like that. Like, I'm not going to, well, maybe I will, but I doubt I have 100% of Cole. There are other good pitchers to get to. This is actually a pretty deep pitching slate in the mid range. But other than, individual lineups where it's just like, oh, well, I can't afford Cole in this lineup, or I want to save some ownership in this lineup. You shouldn't be looking blindly at a 55% Cole and just like making the decision based off that. Like, oh, I'm not going to play him because XYZ. You're just going to make mistakes if you're looking at individual players that way.
Yep, exactly. What do you want to do with Castillo today? New team, 9,700, but he's got to match up with the Yankees. Not pulling any ownership, which is helpful, but probably shouldn't either.
Rich B, I am much better at predicting how often I'll get laid in a month than I am at predicting home runs.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, well, they're sort of the same thing. They happen really, really infrequently.
Yeah, anyway, Castillo, tough spot. Really tough landing spot for him. Like, it sucks. It's got to suck. Like, you get traded to a new team and they're like, hey, you're going to go out there against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. That's how you're going to get introduced to our fans, and you're probably going to get the shit kicked out of you because it's the Yankees. But he's a good pitcher. 9,700 against the Yankees is a pretty easy pass, I think. No Aaron Judge.
Give that guy a rest. Probably pinch hit homer.
Right.
Yeah, I ran a dummy crunch just to check and see what everything's coming in. I am not getting to Castillo. Basically neutral to Cole. We'll talk about the guys that I'm over on in a little bit. Let's talk about the offenses here. And not a lot to write home about. Yankees 10th in top stack, 10th in ownership. Mariners 12th in top stack, 12th in ownership. I probably lean a little bit more towards getting to the Yankees, but I don't think that their ownership is all that crazy. I'd like to get a little bit more, but the fact that there's no Judge in the lineup kind of changes the equation a little bit in a way. They aren't owned, though. Only Anthony Rizzo in double digits of ownership. Like, that's not something you would expect to see from a Yankees team on a 6-game slate. What do you do with New York?
Yeah, and Judge not being in the lineup, like you said, it just changes the equation like entirely, because it makes the stack less expensive because you're taking out the $6,400 or whatever he is guy that you kind of have to have in there. But at the same time, you're taking out the best hitter in baseball. So it clearly makes the stack less appealing. It also drives down the ownership. There wouldn't have been a lot of aggregate ownership on the Yankees here one way or the other because the matchup is difficult. But Judge pretty much always pulls it. Without him, you're just not going to get much ownership going here. But Castillo is a really good pitcher. He's done in the past. He used to be really good at getting strikeouts, but he would give up some power. He has sacrificed a little bit of that strikeout upside, but has figured out how to limit power much, much better. Sub 100 expected ISO to right-handed hitters this year. 144 expected ISO to lefties. The Yankees are always in play, but it's tough for me to get to them against Castillo.
Yeah, I'm very light on the dummy crunch that I ran, so I don't expect to get to a lot of Yankees. We'll see where that ends up by the time we get to 1 o'clock, but doesn't seem like a direction I want to go. And I guess we could have this little talking point because we do it on bigger slates, and it's a lot easier, I think, to just hand wave it. Is there value in going to Seattle if Garrett Cole is in 60% of lineups? There's obviously more than it normally is.
Right, yeah, there's more on this size slate than normal. You do have cheap pricing on the Mariners. You do have some left-handed power here. Cole is very, very good against left-handed hitters, but if you had to point to a weakness or something you can try to exploit from like a DFS standpoint, he does give up some power, 173 expected ISO, 36.7% strikeout percentage. So it's certainly not likely that any of these guys do anything against him, but it is Yankee Stadium, plays up left-handed power. You do have Frazier, Winker, Santana, Crawford, Kelenic, all from the left side. No Cal Raleigh takes one left-handed power bat out of the lineup, but I'll make my obligatory Jesse Winker 3,200 in Yankee Stadium mention. But clearly, this is not a high probability team. If you're playing them, it is simply because it's a short slate and they're not going to get much ownership. And if they do happen to do well, 55% of the field just lost a pitcher.
There we go. Anything else you want to touch on in this game?
Nope.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. We'll have the deeper dive coming up later tonight at 5 p.m. That'll be for your standard main slate. I actually don't know how big the main slate is tonight. Do you? Off the top of your head, have you looked at it?
It's 6 and 5. So 5.
Okay, perfect. So 5-game main slate tonight per Adam. No guarantee that it is actually 5. Okay, guaranteed that it's actually 5. I looked, but I didn't trust him. That's for sure. And then you'll get live before lock from 6 to 7. So standard 2-hour content block of MLB tonight. But we don't end there. PGA live before lock coming up tonight at 8 p.m. That is for the Wyndham Championship. I believe this is the final regular season event for the PGA. So make sure you're checking it out. Good event too. And let's go. Who we cheering for? Let's go Billy Horschel. Let's go Billy Ho, man. I had the alliteration there and everything, and I missed it. That sucks. That pisses me off. Anyway, PGA Live Before Lock tonight, 8 p.m. Free content for today. DK Night Owl, PGA ownership. Make sure you're checking out that Night Owl tool. Brand new to the website. Consolidating all of our information into a basically one-stop shop for you. So let us know what you think. It is free for today.
What time does PGA lock tomorrow? Just so I don't forget.
That's a good question.
If you don't have it on top of your head, I can figure it out.
I'm about to have it. PGA locks at 6:50 a.m.
Okay, cool. I will make those lineups tonight. Right when I decide it's time to go to bed, I will remember that I haven't even started on golf.
I will also Red Skittles. Good point. That is not alliteration. It's just rhyming. What do I want to say? Yeah, I will make those lineups tonight. So I'll make sure to tweet out my exposures. Just pick one of those first 3 guys, and you'll realize that that's the guy that's going to withdraw at 6:49. I'll feel pretty good about that. Here we go. Twins and Tigers. Interesting talking points here. 5.1 run implied total for the Twins. 3.5 for the Tigers. Joe Ryan and Tyler Alexander. Ryan is the guy pulling some ownership here. 19%. In fact, he is 8,100. Tyler Alexander pulling no ownership whatsoever, and I don't think he should. Let's start with Joe Ryan. How do you feel about that ownership?
I think it's fine. He was one of the mid-range pitchers I was referring to earlier when I said that it's actually a pretty deep mid-range pitching slate. He's got decent strikeout stuff. He has kind of taken a step back this year. Last year, it seemed like he was going to pretty quickly develop into a good starting pitcher. This year, he does have a 4.6 xFIP, but he still has a 22.7% strikeout percentage, only a 7% walk percentage. He's facing the Tigers, which obviously is a good spot to be in. From a splits standpoint, if you had to point to one potential concern here, he has been flat out bad at striking out left-handed hitters. Very, very good at striking out right-handed hitters. 28.7% strikeout percentage against righties this year compared to only 15.9% against lefties. It is likely that that gap closes a bit, but the Tigers are running 6 left-handed bats. Yeah, 6 left-handed bats out there. So mild downgrade, but also accounted for in the fact that he's $8,100. Like, he should probably just be more expensive. So I still like Ryan here. That's just the one negative thing that I could find to point to.
Okay. Yeah, I ended up a little bit over the field on the dummy crunch that I ran, 26% owned. I assume that I'm going to get to him right around that mark as we get closer to the buildup of lock. But for right now, I am getting to Ryan. I am not, however, getting to Tyler Alexander.
Yeah, no, there's no reason to get to Tyler Alexander.
Blitz says, "Goddamn, y'all flying through these. Thought you would do the early slate last." Nope, first. Hit the first 2 games for FanDuel, and now we're on to the actual slate. It's 11:24. We've been going for... You probably think we started at 11:15. We did not.
Also, she might think that we're doing the main slate on this show because a lot of times we do the main slate and then we throw in like the early slate at the end. But
That's a
this
good
was
point.
actually scheduled to be an early slate show.
Well, if you got here 9 minutes ago instead of 24 minutes ago, it seems like we're cruising through this slate.
Yeah, but like you understand what I'm saying, right? Like a lot of times we just ignore the early slate and then throw it in at the end as like a.
Oh yeah, but
when it's like
the sidebar has all of what we've done so far, so it probably looks like we went really quickly instead of not actually as quick as it seems.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like we're not moving as fast. We're moving really fast if we started 9 minutes ago. We're not moving all that fast if we started at 11. So, yeah, we're making it work today. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about at this point because we'll have a lot of time to make our lineups when the show's over. It's an easy one to do today. Even watching 4 years plus, Josh never wants to talk about the early slate. Finally, we're on it. Trust me, when it was asked to start the show, I said no.
No, they're still. You keep saying early slate meaning FanDuel. They're just referring to what we are talking about, like what this show is. We are talking about the early slate right now.
We are talking about the early slate right now. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
But there is a early slate today.
Right. No, they're talking about early. Normally, there'll be like a 3-game early slate, and we ignore it because who the hell cares? But then people are like, why aren't you talking about the early slate on the morning show?
Right.
So that's what he's talking about. But when we actually have a legit early slate like we do today, we do talk about it. Yeah. But you still seem confused.
I completely agree with every single sentence that you just said.
Okay. We can move on.
Do you like Tyler Alexander?
Might be a nice guy, but no.
Okay. Well, the thing that we need to talk about most here are the Twins. Second in our top stack tool, number 1 in ownership, 17.7% aggregate. This is the team of the 3 that are pulling ownership that I have, less of than the other 2. Where do you land on the Twins? Because they are basically free too.
Yeah, and it's not a bad spot. Alexander's a little bit more stretched out too, so it's not a pure bullpen game, even though it is still kind of like a modified bullpen game here. 200 expected ISO to righties, 133 to lefties. I like the Twins. There's plenty of right-handed power in this lineup. Polanco, Correa, Miranda stand out in particular.
Yeah.
So basically, asked if I thought I could kick your ass. He has a huge size advantage, so I would need to get a takedown in there.
Yeah. I've got the long limbs, hoping I could pull off like a triangle or something like that at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about you subbing me from your back, but even getting the takedown would be difficult just because like it would be the thing where like you go for the takedown and they just like land on their foot by accident and like still won't go down.
Yeah, it's a very different size equation. The center of gravity, I'm probably going down.
Yeah, but boxing match, I'm dead. MMA, I have a chance if I can get him on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just limb length right out of the gate is very different. What about pop shot?
Definitely not a pop shot.
I had to give my wife our dental insurance card out of my wallet, and she saw 450s fall out of it, and she was just like, "Did you go to the strip club?" And I just laughed, and she's like, "You did?" I was like, "No, this is from playing pop shot at a normal restaurant."
Yeah, no, we tried, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, it was like not for lack of effort.
Somebody asked about what happened to my hand wall. That was just a random hotel in LA.
Yeah. Pete the Heat in the house. What up, Pete?
Yeah, perfect timing for him.
Yeah, we both lose there. That's for sure.
Yeah, but we have both been in a UFC octagon.
That's true.
He may have to, for all I know, but
yeah. My height and weight and reach advantage against Pete is not going to prove very vital.
Right. Like I am completely sure. Well, that was like my first thought to the question about me and you. It was like, if I had any sort of training, sure. Yeah. But because I would be a lot more confident that I can get you on the ground. But I have no idea how long it would take me to get you on the ground and how many times I get punched in the face first.
Yeah, I have no idea. I do know that I will be hit repeatedly by Pete if it's Pete.
Before you realize that you guys were fighting.
Yes, I will be waking up quite later than that. All right. Individual bats from the Twins obviously are going to be popping up in potential cash games. Correa for sure is certainly viable. I mean, really, most of these guys are cash viable. Do you see anybody that you would expect to have?
Correa certainly towards the top of the list at 4,500. Polanco, same answer at 4,200. Miranda, if he's batting cleanup at 3,700, is pretty likely to be in there with multi-position eligibility. If you get Gary Sanchez in the lineup, he's 3,500. So there's a lot of guys here that I think you could get to.
Pete, we should have let you know, man. Pena was out at the same place we went to dinner Friday night. Shouldn't have been there. Should have been at home, focused.
Yeah, clearly not prioritizing correctly, going out to dinner with her daughter the night before a fight.
Exactly. Should have known better. Didn't work out for her. Tigers side of this one. We found our top value stack. They are 8th in top stack, 7th in ownership, but number 1 in top value. Is this a spot where you want to get to the free Tigers against a 20%-ish owned Joe Ryan?
Yeah, I think they're a decent stack here because they're not getting that much ownership. They are a really good value, like you said, and it's going to let you pay up for pitching. You know, it's not that there are good mid-range pitchers today, but it's not like it's a bad spot to be in if you're able to play like Garrett Cole and Shane Bieber, or Cole plus Singer and really good one-offs or something like that. So as long as the ownership stays in check, I do think it's a reasonable spot to get to. I mentioned it before that that Ryan has had issues with left-handed bats this year. Not that I expect him to really have issues with these particular left-handed bats, but 16% strikeout percentage, 189 expected ISO. Riley Green looks good. You have Victor Reyes back in the lineup at 2,300. Castro's hitting cleanup at 2,700. So again, outside of basically Green and to a lesser extent Reyes, I can't point to guys individually that I think are really good plays, but as a whole, it's a good but not great pitcher that's getting some ownership and does struggle in this platoon split.
Yeah, this seems like the kind of time where you'd be okay getting there. Green, Reyes, and Castro are the ones getting the bulk of the ownership, but this team is, for all intents and purposes, free. 16% chance of being the top value. I assume I'll be like relatively neutral to the field here on the Tigers, even though I am getting to a bit of Joe Ryan. Interesting game, a spot where outside of Tyler Alexander, probably going to have a lot of it.
Yeah. Apparently Pete was on Alves over Dober too. If he had a good card, I would not have been in a good mood that night.
Same. I had more Dober, that's for sure.
I just badly needed Alves to lose.
Yeah. I was happy that he did too. Once he came out and dancing and stuff and was like doing all those histrionics in the first round and then it slowly went away. I hate when people do that nonsense.
I mean, it didn't really go away. He was dancing in the second or third round when Dober missed him and he just started like moonwalking.
I think that was still the first, but
it wasn't the first.
No?
Because it scared the shit out of me because I saw it the same way you did where I was like, all right, he's slowing down. And then that happened and it was just like, oh, that's not great.
Fair.
But that also did lead to a really cool moment because that was when Chiesa was standing behind us in the suite.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly what happened to Alves.
Yeah, that was... I just wish we could ask him about the nut shot.
Yeah, that would have been such a good follow-up to that.
That was really cool to hear. Anything else, Twins and Tigers?
Nope.
All right, Guardians and Diamondbacks. This is basically the same game from a line perspective. 5.1 runs for the Guardians, 3.6 for the Diamondbacks. Shane Bieber and Tommy Henry going in this one. I believe this is Henry's debut. Bieber, 9,500, so $200 behind Luis Castillo. He's 30% owned, so comparable ownership to Martin Perez, who is just under Bieber in terms of salary. Henry pulling no ownership whatsoever. I don't have him grading out all that well, but I think Bieber looks fantastic here. I actually like him a little bit more than we do. Very happy to get to Bieber here at 9,500.
He looks good. 24.6% strikeout percentage, 3.24 xFIP, 5.8% walk percentage. He's, maybe not as good or definitely not as good as he was pre-injury, but he's still a good pitcher. Looks like somebody I certainly want to get to here. We have him with, where'd he go? We have him with a 24% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 30% ownership. Perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah, so this is the guy that I'm getting to second most of anybody. I've got mid-40s in ownership of Bieber. I'm basically taking a bigger stand on Cole Bieber and think that's going to be fine for me. Is there anything here for you?
The spot that really stands out to me is, and we'll talk about it, but why is Martin Perez getting the same ownership and why does he have similar top 2 percentage to Shane Bieber?
I have no idea. I don't have those guys as close. I've got Bieber by 3 fantasy points. I've got Bieber at 34% top pitcher, Perez at 23. So I've got a pretty sizable gap, and I'm under the field on Perez if those ownership numbers hold.
Yeah, and like I'm not even knocking Perez. He's just not as good a fantasy pitcher as Bieber.
No, not at all. Do you have anything that you want to talk about for Tommy Henry? He is like a fully stretched out, ready to go starter.
Yeah, 20 starts at AAA this year, 108 innings pitched, 21.9% strikeout percentage, 5.17 xFIP. He's, according to FanGraphs, the 20th ranked prospect in the Arizona system, not ranked overall. So kind of just seems like a lefty that, maybe hangs around as like a 5th starter for a little bit and then never gets heard from again or something like that. On this slate, I don't think I really need to mess with it. It's not a good strikeout matchup against Cleveland. There are plenty of high upside mid-range arms. If this were a slate where you just had like Cole and Bieber at the top and then you had nothing in the middle, you could make a case for just a fully stretched out $5,800 guy. But here, I just don't think I really need to do it, because if I do need to save money at pitcher, I can just go to like a Singer Ryan pairing or something like that and still be pretty happy.
All right, let's talk Guardians bats. 3rd in our top stack tool, 2nd in ownership. Outside of Jose Ramirez, incredibly easy to get to. I think they look great. Jose Ramirez probably in a cash lineup for you. This is my 2nd most exposed team. I am happy to get to Cleveland today.
Agreed. We obviously don't really know what we're getting from Henry. I mentioned his elevated xFIP. One thing that does stand out as weird is that he only allowed 0.92 home runs per 9 at AAA this year after allowing 1.87 at AA last year. The reason that's really weird is, unless it changed recently, Arizona's AAA team is in whatever the PCL is now called. So typically you're going to see elevated.
It's not the PCL anymore?
I think it's something else. It could be the PCL, but I'm pretty sure it's just like the Western Division or something. But normally you're going to see elevated home run numbers there. And he only has a 44.6% ground ball percentage. So it's not like he's an elite ground ball pitcher. It's kind of weird that he didn't give up more home runs there, but I'm not going to read too much into that. It more just stood out as something that I couldn't quickly explain. So certainly willing, obviously, to get to Jose Ramirez here. But you do have some other right-handed bats. Oscar Gonzalez hitting 5th has some power. Miller has first base, second base eligibility. He's cheap. Rosario's price tag is still really cheap. So the Guardians do look like a nice combination of probably being in a good spot and also being inexpensive.
So because of COVID, they reorganized the minors, turned the PCL into AAA West. It is now back to the PCL.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah. And so everything you said was basically spot on. It just was like a COVID thing.
Yeah. Is Reno still their AAA team?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So like that's a place where you should be giving up a lot of home runs.
Yeah. The PCL was basically just like playing on the moon.
Right. Yeah. You're playing every game in Coors Field.
Yeah, guys will be coming up and it's just like, oh, he had 47 dongs in AAA last year. It's like, wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like playing in Coors Field, except if like Coors Field didn't have the massive, like Coors Field at least moved it, like has their fences really far away.
Yeah. On the Diamondback side of this one, 9th in top stack, 8th in ownership. I don't really love getting on the opposite side of Bieber because he's like actually good. Is there any value for you in Arizona?
There's nothing really that stands out. So it's another one of these spots where, short slate pitcher that's getting some ownership. If you get to a little bit of them, that's fine. But like, it's not even like I can point to Bieber and say, oh, he's been giving up power to lefties or anything like that. 149 expected ISO, 27% strikeout percentage against lefties. 138 expected ISO, 23% strikeout percentage against righties. Alec Thomas is cheap. Walker and Varsho are cheap, but looks like one of the less appealing stacks to me.
Anything else for this game?
I don't think so. Mostly just everything from the Guardian side.
There we go. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. 500 people in here, only 82 likes. We should be well over that 100 mark. So please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Before we talk about the presenting sponsor of this show, which would be PrizePicks. If you use the promo code PrizePicks, if you use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO at PrizePicks, you can get $100 match deposit bonus. So if you put in $100, they will match it with $100. They've got all sorts of different sports here. I'm looking at Call of Duty, MMA, KBO, soccer, tennis, WNBA, PGA, NASCAR, and of course, baseball. We're going to hit on a couple of the pitcher fantasy scores for today. We will kick it off. Luis Castillo, over under 27.5 points.
Over.
I got him right on 27, so that one's going to be a pass for me. Garrett Cole.
31.
Oh, okay. Garrett Cole, 42.5.
Under.
Okay, I got him at 40.1. I would take the under as well, but not something that I'm really trying to get to. We just talked about this guy. That's going to be Shane Bieber. This one to me, snap under, 40.5.
Yeah, under.
Yeah, I got him at 35.5. So there's that. And final one, Joe Ryan, 36.5. Way under for me.
Yeah, I'll say under. I had to keep looking.
For reference sake, by the way, Shane Bieber, 40.5. Martin Perez, 35.5. Guys, just go sign up at PrizePicks. Plenty of tools on Stokastic.com that I think will help you guys out. That will be something that will be beneficial for you. And use that promo code AWESEMO to really get there. Scott Eiserman with the super chat. Oh, you had another one before, too. I could see that this is basically the same two questions. So thank you for both of those. Said, any chance Adam can really guide me to the best two pitchers via his algorithm and best two teams to stack? Also, Big Neck Josh, thanks for being the best host in the industry. I agree. I am the best host in the industry. Adam, best two pitchers and best two teams to stack right now.
With the caveat that I haven't made lineups yet, because I always do that after the show. Cole, Bieber are the two pitchers I would want to get to the most.
Yes.
Mid-range wise, Ryan and Singer both look good if you need to save some money. Stack wise, I mean, ownership's an issue, but Minnesota against Alexander looks good. Cleveland against Henry looks good.
And you will inevitably, I think, say the Astros, but
yeah, always the Astros.
Okay. Game number 4, Rangers and Orioles. 4.2 run implied total for the Rangers. 3.5 for the Orioles. Martin Perez, Kyle Bradish. Bradish only getting a little bit of love, 4.5% owned. I'm a little lighter there. Martin Perez, 30% owned. We kind of touched on it earlier, but how do you feel about Martin Perez at that ownership today?
Like, I think he's a good pitcher. He has a 3.68 xFIP this year. I think he's been lucky, but this is one of those spots where just because you say somebody's going to regress doesn't mean you think they're going to be bad moving forward. I just don't think he's going to be as good as he has. He has a 2.52 xFIP or ERA this year compared to a 3.68 xFIP. So full run higher there. 284 BABIP is pretty unsustainable and lucky. 78% left on base percentage isn't crazy, but probably a little bit high. 0.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings. That's almost certainly going to come up, but still a solid pitcher, just not a great DFS pitcher because he only strikes out 20.9% of hitters. He's relatively expensive here. So it's like a tricky spot for me to articulate because I do think Martin Perez is a fine play if you just like ignore salary and ignore ownership and ignore other pitchers on the slate that are less expensive. If you just say, can you play Martin Perez against the Orioles here? Sure. But it's just kind of difficult for me to understand why he's getting so much ownership when he's close in salary to Bieber, who's a better strikeout pitcher. He's more expensive than all of Lynn, Ryan, Singer, who are in pretty decent spots, and in Singer's case, not as good a spot, but also just a really good pitcher. So it's kind of hard for me to just wrap my head around why Perez is getting as much ownership as he is right now, even though I do think he's a perfectly fine play and a good enough pitcher.
Yeah, I got 12% on my run. I'm more than happy there. I have more Joe Ryan. I have Joe Ryan projected slightly higher than him, and I feel pretty happy about all of those conclusions. So you detailed it out for me. Kyle Bradish, anything there for you?
He has pretty good strikeout stuff. He does give up power. He's got a 22.9% strikeout percentage, 2.1 home runs per 9. Does have a 3.84 xFIP as well. We're getting a pretty solid version of, about as good as it can get from the Texas lineup. So, I was kind of hoping we get a little bit of a watered down lineup there. But 258 expected ISO to righties, 116 to lefties, 27% strikeout percentage to lefties, 20% to righties in his limited sample with the Orioles this year. I don't think I'm going to need to get to him much. I do think 6,400 is a decent price tag. Like if you're paying down at pitcher, I would get to Bradish before I get to Henry or Tyler Alexander. But I also don't think you're going to need to do it all that often.
Yeah, I think I got about 6% of Bradish, right around the field here. Mike Campbell said, this is where King of Smack says Perez is underpriced. And that is just a great joke. So I'm happy about that one.
Yeah, he's underpriced at 8,800 because if he pitches really, really well, he will have been too cheap.
We'll talk Rangers bats here. 5th in aggregate ownership, but 6th in top stack. I actually have them a little bit higher in top stack, but that ownership feels a tad high. Although we've had this problem for a couple of days now. Most of that ownership is rooted in Marcus Semien and Corey Seager in the 1-2 spots. Their positions and prices are just too good to pass up, given their spot in the order. Do you like Texas as a full stack here against Bradish?
Yeah, I think they're a good stack. You have the Baltimore bullpen behind Bradish. And then, like I just said, Bradish really hasn't been bad this year in terms of xFIP or strikeout percentage, but he does give up power. So it's a high upside spot. And like you were saying, Semien and Seager kind of leading the way in terms of ownership. Heim and Lowe are getting some as well, but that's also very defensible because Heim is a catcher that has some pop. Lowe is a very cheap first base option. Adolis Garcia at 10%, I really like here, given that Bradish really has struggled with right-handed power in particular. I think looking at the ownership for Texas, Garcia is probably my favorite play from the Rangers. I like Semien, I like Seager, obviously, but getting that discount and getting that ownership discount and getting to a bat that has as much power as Garcia does looks pretty appealing. So I like the Rangers here. I don't think it's like, I think that there are certainly some things you can point to that are risky. One, the Baltimore bullpen being good, and two, Bradish not being bad in anything but giving up home runs. But individually, I do really like Adolis Garcia, and I do agree that Semien, Seager, Heim, Lowe are all top plays at their respective positions.
11th in top stack, 11th in ownership. That would be your Baltimore Orioles. Try to give us your best take while turning your homer filter off.
I'm just kind of neutral on them. Perez isn't a great pitcher to target. He does do a good job limiting power. 107 expected ISO to righties this year. No Trey Mancini in the lineup since he's now on the Astros. So you do have a right-handed heavy lineup plus Cedric Mullins, but I think it's still tough to really want to prioritize them. Rutschman, Mullins, Santander also still pretty expensive as well. From a value standpoint, I think $3,300 Mountcastle probably stands out as the best option.
Yeah, I didn't get to too much of Baltimore here. In a way, I wish I did, just because I know that I'm not getting to Perez. It's possible that I'll bump up Baltimore a little bit just to try to take advantage a little bit of that not having Perez. But Perez is also fine, so like that's not really the reason it's happening. It's more of a price thing for Perez.
And John Warner is correct. No Austin Hayes today either.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so it's like an even more extreme version of what we said with the Orioles, where normally, it was 1 through 6, and then you'd get to some kind of average to below average hitters. Now it's going to be 1 through 5 with Mancini gone, but no Hayes today makes it like it's still kind of 1 through 5, but 5 is Urias, who is basically average, but he's been hitting really well recently. After that, though, Ryan McKenna has no business holding a bat in a major league stadium. Jorge Mateo does have some pop and obviously has a lot of speed, but still a below average hitter. Nevin and Chirinos are guys that aren't particularly scary if you're Martin Perez either.
All right, folks. If you are interested in best ball, Underdog has launched the Puppy 3 best ball contest. We would like to help you out there. If you use the promo code PUPPY3, PUPPY, the number 3, all caps, one big word, you can get our weekly best ball kit for $1. This offer ends Sunday. So Sunday, August 7th. That's going to be $9 off the normal weekly price. Covers best ball and season-long fantasy football rankings, Underdog daily draft rankings, our best ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, articles, and more. To use this offer, use that promo code at checkout. Again, PUPPY and the number 3, or click the link in the description of this video if you want to get there a little bit faster. And then make sure you're subscribing both to this channel, the fantasy football channel, and our best ball channel. We've got specific content for best ball for you guys. It's coming out basically daily, so don't sleep on it. Just make sure you're using that promo code. 2 games to go, Adam. Astros and Red Sox. 5-run implied total for the Stros. 3.7 for the Red Sox. Jose Urquidy Dick Mountain going in this one, 15% ownership going to Urquidy, none going to Rich Hill. Urquidy at 15% ownership, 7,900 seems about right. I don't really have a lot to say there. When I look at my ownership, I have about 15% of Urquidy. So do you see him any differently?
No, I think that makes sense. It's just he's a pitcher where on a bigger slate you probably wouldn't really get to too much. But Boston's lineup isn't great. They did get Devers back yesterday, so that certainly makes it a hell of a lot better than it was before. Tommy Pham's in there hitting second. He hasn't been good recently, and by recently I mean the last like 3 seasons. But it's kind of just a middle of the road lineup overall. Urquidy's not a great strikeout pitcher by any stretch. He's only struck out 17.8% of hitters, 4.52 xFIP this year. He's just sort of somebody where in 150 lineups, I would expect that I'm getting around that 15%. If I'm playing like a lineup or 3 lineups or something, I don't think I would end up getting to Urquidy. My interest in him also will be somewhat determined by what the weather ends up doing in the White Sox game. We haven't talked about that game yet, but it is the one game on the slate that does have some weather concerns. I really like Brady Singer. We'll talk about that when we get there. If I am able to play Brady Singer, I am less interested in Urquidy. If I can't get the Singer, obviously Urquidy is just going to come up a little bit.
All righty. Any Dick Mountain for you?
No.
Agreed. So we'll talk Astros bats. Number 1 in our top stack tool, 3rd in ownership. They were number 1 in my top stack as well, separated by our top stack by 0.1%. This is the team that I am getting to the most on the slate. I have them basically everywhere. Not mad about it at all. I would like to target against Rich Hill, and I would like to do that with a ton of either righty power for the Astros, or if by some chance I have to get to these lowly lefty bats of Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, I think that I can make it work. I love Houston.
Yeah, my God, this lineup is deep now. Mancini in the lineup hitting 7th, Vasquez in the lineup hitting 8th. I mean, this lineup 1 through 8 is really, really, really good. So yeah, I'm with you. Like if you can get to Houston, they're kind of expensive. Alvarez at 6,200 and Altuve at 5,800 in particular, but you can offset that with Aledmys Diaz at 3,600 with Mancini at 3,100. So certainly like Houston. This is Hill's first start in like a month, returning from the injured list. So far this season, 194 expected ISO to right-handed hitters. It sets up really well. And from a non-specific matchup point, Trey Mancini going to the Astros is absolutely fantastic for him from a fantasy perspective, whether you're talking season long or DFS. Houston sets up the Crawford boxes and left are just absolutely like tailored for where Trey Mancini hits the ball. So he's just somebody that I think you're going to see his salary either quickly increasing going forward, or he's just going to be like a perpetually good play every time he's in Houston.
And if you're the type of person that believes in lineup protection, I think having Yordan Alvarez hitting behind you should get you some pitches to hit.
Well,
no, the opposite.
Vasquez. So
wait. Oh, did they get a? Oh, so I didn't update the Astros lineup where I had him hitting second. So never mind. Different thing.
Well, there's your case for Jeremy Pena.
Yeah, there you go. Things look good for Jeremy Pena. Oh, Restream bot showing up for once. That's super rare. You never see that. Shout out to Killbell313. Any interest in the Red Sox bats on the opposite side of Urquidy, 8th in top stack, 6th in ownership?
Brian Bayo is not starting for Boston. James Williams. Rich Hill is starting for Boston. What was your other question?
Do you like Boston?
Yeah, okay. Sort of. Like, I don't think Urquidy's that good. And Boston does have decent bats. 140 expected ISO to lefties for Urquidy, 261 to righties, but it's not like I'm going to downgrade Rafael Devers for that, so he's going to look good. Jarren Duran's really cheap. Tommy Pham is probably more expensive than I would really like, but supposedly has some power. Bogarts, I think, looks like one of the better shortstop options. Verdugo is really cheap. Dahlbeck is cheap. Dahlbeck's a good one-off, I think. He's got a lot of power, and as I said, Urquidy's really giving it up to righties. So I am interested in Boston. I'm kind of surprised their implied run total is as low as it is.
Yeah, I thought that they would get a little bit more love just because of their pricing. They're sort of just stuck. We've got these 3 teams that have the 5 run implied totals, and I think it's just soaking up so much exposure that like nobody can climb any higher. Like I don't have Boston looking all that different than the rest of the slate. They're just not a part of the top 3 teams.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like I have no problem saying that they're like the 4th best team. I think you can make that sort of case based on Urquidy's ownership and like the combination of top stack, top value.
Yeah.
Like they are fourth in my like stack score metric that I stole from our site.
Yeah, it's kind of like once you get past. So yeah, I totally disagree with our top stack on the White Sox. Once you get past Houston, Minnesota, and Cleveland, it's kind of just like a free for all.
Well, let's close it out with that White Sox and Royals game. No, that is not how you spell White Sox. 4.6 run implied total for the White Sox, 3.9 for the Royals. Lance Lynn and Brady Singer. Lynn, 22% owned at 7,300. Singer, 12% owned at 7,700. I would have asked you about Lynn first since he's getting more ownership, but you just mentioned Singer. So talk to me about Brady Singer here.
He's good. Like he's a former first round pick for Kansas City. Kind of, was brought up pretty quickly and struggled a little bit, but 26.9% strikeout percentage, 3.23 xFIP this year, only a 6% walk percentage. The White Sox this year have not been very good offensively. Granted, they should be. They have, guys with good pedigrees in their lineup, but Singer at 7,700, I mean, he's just a more talented pitcher than anybody in that price range. He's $400 less expensive than Joe Ryan and projected for less ownership than Joe Ryan, despite having a strikeout percentage that is 4 points higher, an xFIP that is 1.5 runs lower. I don't really get it. I think Singer at this ownership and price tag looks extremely good as long as the weather cooperates.
I am not getting to as much Singer. I have him 3 fantasy points behind Joe Ryan right now. So I am neutral to the field on Singer. I'm nervous about that just because, one, he's the type of guy that could like take a big leap and appears to be taking that leap and has the strikeout stuff that isn't necessarily rectified in my stuff right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, across the industry, projections on him are pretty modest at best. I just completely disagree. Like this is a spot where I am comfortable saying like he's better than he's currently being projected for.
Yeah, my only concern is that I have the White Sox as the third best offense on the slate behind the Astros and behind the Yankees, and that might cause some issues for me. So that's probably not helping either. But he would be the one guy that I would want to like sort of manually override to get to more, because I think he looks better just talking it out than he does just on paper for me right now.
Yeah, and it's not like it's crazy to see. I mean, he's 25 now, 18th overall pick in 2018. It's not like it's crazy to see this guy go, jump from a 22.5% strikeout percentage to 26.5%.
No.
Like he's always had the stuff. It's just a matter of putting it together and figuring some stuff out.
Absolutely. How do you feel about Lance Lynn though? $400 cheaper than Singer. To me, just a little bit easier to get to. Matchup is just slightly better as well.
Yeah, I think Lynn looks fine. 23% strikeout percentage, 3.65 xFIP so far this year. We don't have the Kansas City lineup yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be what it normally is, where 1 through 4, it's good with Melendez, Witt, Perez, Pasquantino. Then you get Hunter Dozier, who is not great, but also cheap and, playable for DFS, but also somebody you can get strikeouts from. And then the bottom of the order just isn't very good. So I do think it's a good spot for Lynn at 7,300. I like getting there as well. He, so far this year, is doing his normal thing where he strikes out a third of the right-handed hitters he faces and doesn't strike out that many lefties. So that's another thing to pay attention to with the Kansas City lineup. But he's cheap enough where it's not going to matter to me too much what the Kansas City lineup looks like. The biggest thing we're going to need to keep an eye on here is what the weather looks like. And that's something I probably won't figure out until like 12:30, 12:45.
Yeah, just from what I'm looking at right now, hoping that they just play a little late,
right,
and then they're good to go. It's always better to get weather on an early slate than a late slate, just because you got more time throughout the day to just like let it clear if you really, really need to. So
yeah, and I think the White Sox, I could be wrong on this, I think the White Sox typically do a pretty good job of not screwing up weather decisions. Yeah. So it makes me just a little bit more hopeful that we get the delayed start as opposed to, we're going to play for 45 minutes and then we're going to go sit in the dugout for an hour.
It'll annoy me for the slate if they just happen to start at like 3:15 instead, and then like this slate is actually ending at like 6 something. But otherwise, I think that I'm going to be playing this one straight up.
Yeah, if nothing changes between now and lock, I'm going to just be running with these pitchers and hope I don't get screwed on weather.
Will you be running with the hitters? White Sox 4th in top stack, 9th in ownership. They're expensive a little bit. They are 11th in leverage, or 11th in top value, rather. That's out of 12 teams. seems like a spot that we should be trying to target here, but I know you like Singer, so it's an interesting balance.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the White Sox here. I still think you can make the case that they clearly have guys that have track records of being good hitters, but against right-handed hitters this year, Singer sub 100 expected ISO, 232 expected WOBA, 24.5% strikeout percentage. Lefties have gotten to him a bit, 222 expected ISO, 353 expected WOBA. Does have a 28.5% strikeout percentage in that split, but you also don't really have left-handed bats here. Yohan Moncada is the only one in this lineup because Gavin Sheets was scratched, so I don't know. Like the implied run total is relatively high for Chicago. I don't know. I'm higher on Singer, which naturally makes me lower on the White Sox.
Yeah, I have my top stack on the White Sox 2% lower than us, which is probably the biggest swing that I have between our stuff, and makes me a little bit less likely to get to Chicago. I actually have more Royals bats. I don't even have to ask you if you will, because I know you will. Fifth in top stack, fourth in ownership. They are showing up a bit over-owned right now. Cheap to get to, though. A lot of 2K bats in this Royals lineup. Do you like the Royals side of this one more against Lynn?
No. I like left. I mean, Pasquantino at 2,100 is still just a mispricing. He hasn't had success in terms of results in the majors, but his plate discipline numbers look fantastic. He's certainly hit into some bad luck if you look at expected numbers versus what's actually happened. So I will just continue playing him at 2,100 whenever I can. But overall, I think this finally might be a slate where I don't jam in Kansas City.
Yeah, I have half the field right now. I just happen to have more Royals than White Sox, but I am a little bit lighter on the bats in this spot. Don't really have anything else. There's certainly some KC cash potential, but more likely to be getting to that Twins, Guardians, Astros group first before you need to get anywhere else.
Yeah, agreed.
Like the Melendez, Witt type stuff is always there. Pasquantino, if you really need the salary at 2,100, is someone that at least I know you and I would be on. I think we're done here. I mean, you guys got to pay attention to the weather. The slate isn't going to lock for a bit. FanDuel locks in 30 minutes or so. Let's sum it all up. Favorite stacks for today?
I mean, I'm on board with the top three. With the super chat earlier, I'd said Cleveland and Minnesota because they do offer a little bit more value than Houston, but certainly happy to get to Houston as well. I will gladly use my savings on Brady Singer to get to those bats. So yeah, I mean, I think it's those three. If you're looking for a little bit lower owned teams, I think that like Detroit or Boston probably would be where I go.
Yeah, Astros and Guardians are the guys I'm getting the most. It appears as of right now that I'm going to be lighter on the Twins. So I had, kind of got to make a decision between them somewhere. It looks like it's the Twins for me. And then you mentioned Boston. Boston is the team that I have third most in terms of full stacks. So that would be the team that I'm trying to get to a little bit more than the current public. What about pitching for you today?
Comment God said, watch the White Sox end up with the highest scoring slate. Yeah, there's probably like an 8-ish% chance of that happening, 8 to 10%.
Yep.
Yeah, it's baseball. Pitching, I mean, Cole,
I think I said it right out of the gate when we started talking about them, what the odds were of that happening.
Yeah. Cole, Bieber obviously look really good. I like Brady Singer if he's going to be 12% owned. I like Ryan and Lynn too, but it's just out of this group of Lynn, Ryan, Singer, or Urquidy, I don't see any argument that Singer is not the most talented pitcher and he's getting the least ownership.
I think that's a reasonable stance to take. Nervous about Singer's like how real it is, but he's the guy that it should be the most real for. So that gives me a little bit of pause. Might have to bump him up a little bit, especially if the ownership stays low. That's what we got, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Good luck on this slate. Remember, deeper dive and live before lock later tonight. Adam, I assume, will be putting out some GPP videos sometime after that 1 p.m. lock. So that's all I got now, guys. Good luck tonight. Thank you for being here. Hey, by the way, NFL starts tomorrow. Keep your eyes peeled for some NFL content because that's going to be popping up fast and furious over these next few weeks. Hit the like button on your way out the door. Thank you to PrizePicks. We're out of here. Peace.